So, since I have a lot of time on my hands, I've been thinking a lot about the decade to come, and I have a prediction. I think the Roaring Twenties are coming back, and I recognize that we live in a very different world this time around than 100 years ago. And so, just because it happened once doesn't mean it's going to happen again. But regardless, there are some major parallels here. Let me break down my rationale. First of all, I understand that this may seem very unlikely at this very moment in time, considering all the restrictive measures in place, but that is precisely actually where this idea comes from. It's almost like a action-reaction sort of thing. This is just how humans work, you know? When you suppress something, that thing will find other ways to come out, to manifest itself. And there's many permutations of this, one of which is the Barbra Streisand effect, right? To very briefly recap, I believe Barbra Streisand didn't want photos of her house to get out on the internet, so she attempted to suppress them, and this leaked somehow, and therefore the internet did its thing and made sure that that didn't happen. And so almost by trying to suppress the images, they became far more greatly circulated. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of important details in this story, but you get the gist. And considering the world that we find ourselves in right now, forget it, okay? Things are going to be out of control. I've surprised myself in how badly I miss house parties and being surrounded by attractive people my age. Now, let's rewind a little bit, because I think there's a lot of parallels between the years to come and the previous 20s, the 1920s. Let us not forget that in the lead up to the Roaring Twenties, there was the 1918 Spanish flu, so also a pandemic, and World War I, so tons of destruction and suffering, and it just was not great. Now, once again, not an economist, and I think it's just difficult to make predictions in such a complex, fast-moving world, but I'm going to go for it anyway. And my conclusions are both optimistic and pessimistic, I guess. As we all know, the economy goes through the cycle of boom and bust, right? We're not even at the point yet where we realize the full impact, the economic impact that this is going to have on the entire world. And that is really not an exciting thought to have. But on the flip side, as measures ease, which is likely to begin to happen next year, but we'll see, we don't know, I can totally foresee people just getting out and rejoicing over things that we took completely for granted before, right? This is a real situation of recalibrated expectations, and that is reflected in our appreciation of day-to-day life. And things like socializing with your friends in person. And there's going to be a level of just raucous, crazy behavior like we have never seen. I think this is just what one can expect after the unprecedented recent suppression of industries like travel and restaurants and bars. Now, I feel mixed about this because the rampant capitalistic kind of consumeristic culture that ensued in the 20s, destructive on the planet. I mean, there are clear downsides, but at the same time, it was a great decade for women in that they could vote, in that there was like sexual liberation going on. Like, there's just this weird blend of different things, and so it's hard to qualify this as positive or negative. I can't deny that I feel excited about what's to come. I actually feel optimistic, especially when I place my gaze a little bit further out. So this might not happen for 2 or 3 or 4 years, but I feel pretty strongly that it's going to happen. But at the same time, I'm almost trying to like keep in check my sometimes dangerous habit of over-romanticizing and like, you know, creating fantasies about things that just do not correlate with reality. You know, for large periods of my childhood, before I fully was able to understand the presence of disease and just the absolute lack of hygiene that existed at the time, the 1920s in Paris seemed like this incredible time period that I would have loved to travel to. And this is why Midnight in Paris, despite being just dripping in fantasy, right, dripping in romanticism, was a movie that I really enjoyed. I almost feel like Woody Allen just took that on. Like, that's the whole point of the film, right? To just accept how unrealistic it is. So, as you can tell, I'm feeling quite mixed about all of this and about all of what is to come. I'm trying to organize my thoughts about it, and it's going to be complex, and it's going to be influenced by all kinds of things that I cannot possibly foresee at this point in time. Just like we didn't foresee this year, last year, right? I guess I just wanted to start the conversation here and get the ball rolling and to share my thoughts on all of this, and kind of where I stand right now. And I will not deny the fact that it is an uplifting thought, that the world will go back to some level of normal, even though that normal should have never been normal in the first place. You know, what even is normal? Like, what we were doing even before this year was just like plain and simple not sustainable. So this is just this is complicated. But anyway, those are my thoughts. I am looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say in the comments, and I guess only time will tell, right? Consider checking out my online store as a way to support this channel. I'll put a link in the description.